it's lyfe. And if you've seen my previous video, well, last year actually, about the Kindle Kids Paperwhite, it came with the kids subscription for 1 year, and mine never activated, so I decided that this year I was actually gonna try it and see how it goes. So I activated my account on January 1st, 2024. That way it will be easy to get it done in a year, and that way I can actually cancel it before the new year, make it easy on myself. And the thing I've noticed right off the bat was, in order to activate it, you need internet. Now, I was at a friend's house vacationing up north when I did this, so I have all the footage and all that, and even more footage for the stuff I saw during the month of using it. So I found that pretty funny. That was on me, but I was freezing that day. I didn't really get a chance to use it that much the first day because I was vacationing, so I was off doing things. So when I got back on the 5th or 6th of the new year, then that's when I actually was using it constantly. So the biggest thing I've noticed so far is that the user interface for the kids' profile is very simplistic. Understandable, because it was designed for kids. So the less complicated, the more easy it is, and the less parents will make complaints to Amazon. So they do have like the store on the left tab, which is basically the home, and then on the right for recent, which is the recent books. I've noticed that every time I would add books to it from the adults, which you need the code for because that's what they do, it would constantly default me back into the home and not the recents, where the normal version that I've used for the past several months now, it lets me, if I have it on the recent tab, it stays on the recent tab when I open and close it. This one doesn't. So I found that weird and very annoying because I just want to focus on reading the books, not constantly see the home page. So I see it, and also I don't understand why they have that when the kids don't even have access to the store unless they have the parents' code to verify. And actually in the Amazon account on the computer, you can actually change it. I know when setting up they give you the option or not. So I just did it for me, but I didn't purchase any books at the moment. They do have the standard classics, Dracula, Oliver's Travels, A Sense of Sensibility, I think it was. There was some Jane Austen book. So I thought that was pretty nice that they actually do provide the classics on it, because some teachers, even in like middle school, they'll make them read classics. So that's actually a good advantage for them. What I've also noticed is that usually I put the device on airplane mode just to make the battery last longer, because I read more than the average person. But when I was doing that, it kept showing the little tab icon saying the thing is on airplane mode, and that thing kept going constantly. So it was kind of like a way of saying do not do that, and I found that annoying because I haven't tested this out, but I highly doubt that if you're like bringing it to like a park, it won't show that if you have no Wi-Fi and all that. But that's something just to keep in mind if you really want to preserve the battery longer. That's gonna keep popping up. Now, I did know right off the bat that you could use the library, but when I was actually researching the kids Kindle, when I was actually researching which Kindle I wanted to get last year, a parent complained about how to get a library book to the device, and it was very complicated. Thankfully, they actually improved on that. However, there is some problems to it. So on the device, parents have access controls to where they can add books onto the kids. So if the kids borrow a book from the library on Libby, like say on their phone, like I usually do, they won't be able to do that unless the parents go to the Amazon account on their computer and then move it. So I find that very annoying. I found that you couldn't bring Prime books to it, which I'll get into that later. So my first experience of that is like, oh, okay, probably it's like Prime books. There are some kids books in, I think, like middle grade, but it's mostly adult and, adult content, that type of deal. So, okay. I think it was the second or third week of using it when I actually went to put an actual library book inside the device. I just I went to my computer, opened the account, and then I found that Prime books actually can go into it. So I found that interesting, but at the same time annoying, because for parents that like want to bring the books to the library onto their device for the kids, you can't do it on the device itself. Whatever you have on the adult profile, you can put in whatever, but if it's any, like I said, library books or even Prime books, you can't put it on, but you can do it on the computer. I don't understand that. I did like how in the store features of like just browsing and scrolling through, that for like genres and all that, they actually have like starter book series, but at the same time for some books that has series, like I think it was the Percy Jackson books, but the other series, it had the second book and not the first book. So some books have like the first book, and then the other ones you actually need to buy them. It makes sense if the kids actually enjoyed the first book that they want to continue reading the series, and the parents are like, okay, the kids are interested, I can just buy it and be done. However, I do notice that for the pricing on the middle grade books, like the Princess Diaries, I think it was like to buy the second book, it was like $8 to like $15. I noticed a couple of others were doing the same thing too. However, books have been going up in price digitally, but also physically as well. So it could be because of inflation. That's why I'm saying that at the moment. So I can't say for sure, but I'm pretty sure like that's the reasoning behind it. Another thing I've noticed is that when you exit the kids page, if you have the library book borrowed already, it's on the adults, of course. So I noticed that when I was like reading a book from Dana K. White, and then I actually later put it onto the kids, that way it was just much easier for me to read that and then read the other kids books just to keep track of it. It didn't save the reading session. Like I was on like page like 44, and then on the kids it showed me 0. So I found that like annoying, but then I realized that it's a kid's profile, and when you think of it, a kid's profile would have it dedicated to whatever they wanted to, versus the adult is basically its own profile in a way. So I get that, but if you're just using it for yourself, then it's very annoying. Another thing too is that when I was like adding books to it for the kids profile, and I would just like go back, it will actually kick me out of the kids and go straight to the normal default. It was constantly doing that, and even to where in the store of just like browsing through the free books it gives you, some sections where I will pick a genre and just go back, it will actually kick me out. Now for the books that had like the first book to the series to introduce you to, it didn't do that, so that was nice, but everything else did. And I noticed that when you add books to it, it doesn't go onto the recent tab. It goes onto the home section, and you have to scroll up to see added for you. And you can't like physically move it to the recent. Once you open it, then it's there. So now that I got my overall experience of the first month, let's go into the pros. And I got a lot. Adding books from the store download automatically into your recent shelf is great. When I download from the normal version, I noticed that it actually doesn't download. You have to actually tap it, and then it'll show you the queue and then the number percentage of it downloading, and then you can read it. Whereas this, you just go and download it and then it does it. If you're downloading multiple books, then it will take a little bit of while, and that is to be expected, but it does a better job than the normal version, so I give it that. It has classics, so that's actually a good thing because not a lot of people know about classics. And say that in school the teacher decides to bring up a classic and it's the one that they're actually reading, they can just read it at home and not have to worry about borrowing from the library or not be able to bring the book with them, because some teachers they read it in class but you can't actually bring it home with you. So that's a nice option that they give. Another pro that I'll give for the kids subscription, whoever decided to catalog the books, they make sure that it's fairly clean. I will say that the only book that I read that has like one curse word was the Princess Diaries. Other than that, all the other books I've read have been totally clean. Another pro is that the wide range of books. So say that your kid is like 5 years old, they have like a section of books where you can cater to that only. But if they want to read more, or you feel like they can actually read higher book levels, you can do that. You can change it in the settings when you set up the kids subscription, or just do that on the computer if you change your mind. So I know there's some kids out there that like to challenge themselves, which is wonderful. So having the option to either keep them at a certain level or expand so that way they can read more advanced level for their age group is terrific, because reading is very essential, because not enough people realize that we read every day. We just don't read at like we don't read high scholar level, but at the same time we read every day, like text messages, reading what's on a menu, those simple things. So reading is very crucial. The reading tracker and goal. I totally forgot to mention this because I don't really look into it much, but it is nice that you get to have like a little tracker feature to see how many books you read, how many pages you read, and they actually give you badges the higher you go and all that. So I think the highest one, if you reach like 10,000 pages, that's the highest tier. So I can see kids want to strive for more reading just to get those little badges. It doesn't pop up or anything. You actually need to go to the menu to do that. But it also does show like how many pages they read per book, how long they actually read the book as well. So that's actually a pretty good indicator for parents who want to see, okay, how much is my kid actually reading versus just fooling around or just like doing homework. Another feature that is a pro, but I can see kids that if it was like me, I would be like so upset, is the bedtime setting. So you can actually set that up already or set up later to where the kids can continue reading until a certain bedtime, and then it will shut itself down or something like that. I know parents don't want kids to stay up too late, otherwise they won't wake up for school, but they have that feature if you know your kid that well, or you can just have it off and trust your kid to be responsible. But when you're like in middle school or below, you know how that goes. Even high schoolers, man. I mean, I was one of them. I just did not want to wake up. Library books, that's actually a good thing. Even though Amazon has a huge selection, it doesn't always have the books that you want, or a certain like old book, like classics. Not all the classics are on the kids subscription. So if you want to get that, then you can actually borrow from the library. Though it does have minor setbacks, the control feature for buying books, parents can either set that up, that way the kids don't spend with their credit card and all that. So that's actually a good thing, because I know there's some kids that will take their parents' credit card and just swipe it. I'm just like, oh geez, that's not how I grew up, but kids nowadays are getting more clever, and you definitely want to make sure that there is no surprises in your bill. Another pro is that parents can actually use the device themselves. Because you can exit out of the kids subscription anytime you want, it doesn't cancel it at all. That actually, to cancel it, needs to be done on the computer. So that could be a good or bad thing. but also the fact that you can exit out for the parents and the parents can actually read it themselves, whatever they have, or even read the library book that they borrowed and actually read at the same time as their kid. That way they can have, for instance, conversations about the book if they're doing like a school project, or just make sure that what they're reading that they borrow from the library is actually kid appropriate. If they're like waiting for the kids to dress up for like soccer practice or something, they can just get a few minutes in of reading, and then when the kids are playing, they can just go back to watching the kids game and all that. So it's beneficial for the kids, but also parents as well. That way they're just more involved with their kids, which I think that's really important, because kids do want to spend more time with their parents, but unfortunately some parents can't. So even though it's not a full bonding as what kids want, it's actually better than nothing, and in some way you are involving your kids' life somewhere. They're more engaged with their kids, and also they also may find that they enjoy the book as much as their kids, and say like, hey, let's go buy all the books instead of just doing it one by one. Another plus is that for the kids subscription, anybody can really read it because it's very clean and all that. Any age group, no matter how old you are, you can read it and still enjoy it. Now there are cons, and unfortunately I have a lot more than I do with pros, but maybe if Amazon does watch this, then they can actually just fix it, because majority of it is actually just firmware that needs to be updated, because they actually have for the library, but it can always improve, and technology is never going to be perfect. So there is no collections organization for the recent tab, and that's really frustrating, because if you download a lot of books, which I personally have because I wanted to get as much as I can read throughout the year, but also not constantly going through the store and selecting one by one, you can't put things away in organizations, and because of the interface that you can only just swipe, there is no scrolling vertically. Adding books to the library is a big problem, to where if parents just want to add books for their kids onto the Kindle for the kids profile, they can't do that, only on the computer, which I still find that strange, that some books can and some books can't. So that could be an easy fix right there, because that leaves frustration, not only for like me, but I can imagine so many parents, to where a kid is like, hey, I want this book so badly, and you know how kids nudge and all that, and they're trying to do that and they find they can't find the book. And also for adding books, another con is there is no search feature. There's not even a gallery just to scroll up and down. So I find that a very inconvenience, and finding that you can't find your book, you kind of think if it's the actual device itself that's not functioning, but it's actually just the interface itself. So that's an easy fix as well. Some book series that I mentioned that give you a starter of like the first book, but I noticed like some other series that is only the second book that they give out for free, not the first book. So I find that weird, because normally you start with the first book, because you generally don't know if it's just a standalone or it's a continuation. So I know some authors, they have like the same world building timeline, but for each book it's a different character. So just having more books that are for the first book into the series is much better than the second. Otherwise, kids will go into the story confused. It defaults to homepage and not the recent. That's an easy fix too. I don't know why they do that, because it's very inconvenient of that. And also, books that were added from the parents on the added for you page, which is on the home page, it doesn't go onto the recent unless you click on it, then it goes onto it. So I wish that would automatically go into the recents, just to make it less of a hassle and more to kids can go into and just read it automatically. instead of going searching, because it took me a while to actually look for it. Adding books and going back home sends you to the adult version and exit out the kids. So I can see that being a big problem for like if a kid knew the code for the parent control and they just want to edit books themselves with the parents' permission and all that, and then they go back and then it kicks them out to there. Or if the parent was working on it, adding the books, and then just accidentally forgot to hit save and then goes back, then the kids can go to the normal page and then just read whatever they want. So that can be a major chaos for the parents. Another thing is that adding the clock, I know that when I had it on the normal setting for the adult version, I added the clock, but when I went to the kids version to read, the clock wasn't on it. So kids will actually have to put the clock on it themselves on the front setting features. So that's something just to keep in mind. This is off topic, but I noticed that if you don't have your Kindle and you have the kids subscription, you can't actually read those books on the app. So I find that weird. I don't know if they have a dedicated version for Amazon for the kids app, so I'll look into that later. Some page numbers shows as location instead of page numbers themselves, and I find that weird because that was also an issue I was having on the adult version as well. Some library books either have the format right and sometimes they don't, but even Amazon, the books that they put themselves out don't even have the page numbers right. It's just location. So I can see that in my case, where I accidentally lost my page and then I realized, wait, I need to go back. So when I was doing that, I realized like, oh wait, this is the location. So I don't know the location because it's not even in order. Like page number is like 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, that and beyond. Whereas location is like 335 to like 700 and something, just like changing it one page. It's very weird. That's pretty much all I have for the stuff I noticed in the first month. Other than that, this is what I've discovered. If you have any questions about the kids' Kindle or the subscription, write it down in the comments down below and I'll try to answer them as much as I can and see what else I discovered and things that probably go bad or still haven't changed. So in the meantime, take care of yourselves and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.